Feshtele, my name is Tashi Lhamo, and I'm a member of the Tibetan community in Britain and also the current national coordinator for VTAG, the Voluntary Tibet Advocacy Group in the UK. And I will be conducting this interview in English today to make it accessible for also non-Tibetan speakers. And this episode of Londonney's special interview series, today I'm joined by Dr Lobsang Sangay, who is the former Sikyong, the elected political leader of the Tibetan government in exile. He was born in a Tibetan refugee settlement in Darjeeling and studied his undergraduate in Delhi University, and then went on to receive a Fulbright scholarship to attend Harvard University, where he was the first Tibetan to receive a Doctor of Juridical Science. So thank you for joining us today, Dr. Lobsang Sangay. So far in your rather busy visit to the UK, you have given a talk at SOAS and Westminster universities and also been to Oxford. And today you are giving a talk to the Tibetan community in Britain in LSE University. I believe the focus of your talk is His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama's contributions to Tibet and the world. During your time as Sikyong, how did His Holiness's leadership impact you in your leadership?
Yeah, in every sense, because as a Tibetan, when you're growing up, your parents, your teachers, your neighbors, relatives, everybody talk about His Holiness, the Great 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet, and also about how they fled from Tibet and how single-handedly, at least at the very beginning, he was the inspiration, he was the hope, he was the symbol. And he really, at the age of 24, he came in exile and, to establish all the settlements, all the schools. So that, you know about it a lot. Then I have had the privilege of having audience with His Holiness first time in 1995 before I went to law school to the US. And then, almost every year when I came back, I have had, a privilege of having audience. So I have had, few interactions or rather advice and guidance from His Holiness, especially my outreach to Chinese students was, he was very keen about. And then also I kind of coordinated His Holiness visit to Boston, maybe three, if not four times, twice to Harvard and all that. So, yes, when I first got elected, there was a bit of a familiarity from his side. He knew who I
Mm.
was. Um, and then I have had many audiences, many, many, many. I'm very fortunate that way, very fortunate. So, in short, the role of Sejong is very tough. It's like running a government uh, without a territory, um, without enforcement mechanism. And then in a sense you're dependent on rest of the world as to what you do, what you say. But each time, you have a problem or challenges or some sad news, you go to His Holiness and you share your feelings. Sometimes you don't have to share, he just look at you, he knows. Whenever you come out meeting him, you feel so relieved, energized, inspired. So, yes, for all the Tibetans as well, me too, he was the source of inspiration and encouragement and definitely guidance. So that way I've been very fortunate that I served under him for 10 years.
Thank you so much. I can definitely attest to that. Even just one kind of a look or a glance from him, and it fills you with so much motivation and positivity. And also in His Holiness's recent book, Voice for the Voiceless, he mentions that sometimes he feels that Tibetans rely on me too much. Do you think that there is a tendency among Tibetans to rely on political or spiritual leaders excessively? And how can the community balance respect for leaders whilst also taking responsibility for their own roles in preserving our culture and advancing the cause?
Definitely, yeah. His Holiness, envisioned this. If you look at the history from 59 when he first came to exile, he started to introduce reforms. From the very get-go, he said we need a parliament, we need democracy. And in 63, we need women representative in the parliament, very early on, minorities representative. The way he designed the parliament, the way cabinet were appointed. And in 1990, we had a constitution, a charter. And then, how um, parliamentarians were directly elected and cabinet were indirectly elected. In 2001, he declared himself as semi-retired. 2011, he declared himself fully retired. So in my, again, I have had maybe, if I count, around 100 private audience, Um, so it is sometimes for, few minutes, sometimes for hour, sometimes more than an hour. So often it was one-on-one.
Mm.
So he always, you know, uh, thought deeply and said, so if you look at as I gave you the dates, right?
Mm.
From the very beginning, he was planning to set up Tibetan democratic system so that the democratic movement, government exile, can shoulder responsibilities moving forward. And he always told me, hey, you have to work as though I'm not here anymore. Directly, he used to tell me privately, plan as though I'm not here. So that was sometimes shocking and sometimes, very moving because we
Mm.
can't imagine our movement without him.
Yes.
But privately, he used to always say that. Um, that's why, and then he, in his book, the way the way you describe it, he really meant it. Now, recently I had a short audience with His Holiness, and I reported to him what I've been doing for the last 1 year. For the first time, I just felt he has age, he's 90 now. And I just felt now more than ever, we should soldier responsibilities. And then he always said that, don't rely
Mm.
on me, you have to take responsibilities. But this time I really felt very strongly.
Yes.
So in my own small way, this time, from September, I've been touring India. October, I'm back home only one night, and then I've been touring. So I was in DC, Prague, Paris, Atlanta, Michigan, back in London. I have to teach, and then I'm going back to Notre Dame University in Indiana.
Mm.
Then I'm back in Boston for 4 days. Monday, I have to teach 6 to 8 p.m. at the law school. Tuesday, again, 6 to 8 p.m. at the law school. And then on Wednesday, I have to teach 10:30 to 11:45 at the Harvard Kennedy School.
Mm.
And in the evening at Rhode Island College. And then next day, I fly back to Berlin. This time because I just felt that in my own small way, now he's not able to travel.
Mm.
So I should do my part to, share his legacy, talk about his reincarnation, talk about his contribution towards democracy. That was my talk at
Yes.
Oxford, University. So yes, I think time has come.
Mm.
Now, Tibetan people, every ordinary Tibetan people should shoulder responsibilities on Tibet
Mm.
and move forward. We can never fill in the shoes of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, but we should do the least we could do is listen to his advice. That is, now it's time. I have shouldered the responsibility practically for the last 60 plus years, even 70 years.
Mm.
Um, Now I think, he deserves some rest.
Yes.
He's, health-wise, he's relatively good for someone who's 90 years.
Mm.
And I've had many encounters. He used to say, Lobsang, I live very long. Why? Because Tibetans in Tibet, when they hear that Dalai Lama is still alive, even though I might be very old, I might not be able to do much, just my existence will give hope to Tibetans in Tibet and keep the hope alive.
Yes.
So His Holiness will do his part. I know, we all know that. Now we have to do our part.
Yes.
So we have to take his word very seriously. So only way the Tibetan movement can maintain our presence and profile and seek support is to be out in the streets. We have to dominate the streets. We have to dominate auditoriums. We have to, march, petition, write, organize events. That's the only way. That's the only way. And His Holiness himself, um, not some people might have forgotten, but he led a march from Meglodganj, from his residence to Kanki in 1990s. And right here in London, in Brussels, in Switzerland, in Czech, he used to address thousands of people, rallies after rallies. So, and he has shown the path. He literally physically traveled to so many countries. And sometimes I've had the fortune of riding him in the car after major events, right? He comes out and I'm in the car and he comes out, and as he comes out, and he's very he's smiling, and if someone meets with him, and he just pats them and encourage them. When someone, obviously we have many problems to share with him, right, all the troubles, and he encourages them. But as he enters the car, and I've on few occasions I've seen him, he says, "Tachesta, 다른 시우치에sos. I'm really tired today." But till he enters the door of the car, he will not show it. And then he sits in the car and he takes out his beads and the 다른 시우치에서, and he starts mantra, just keeps quiet for 10-15 minutes of the ride. And then when he actually he catches a breath, then he starts talking to you. When I've seen him so close, working so hard from morning till evening, 2 major events, 10, 20, 100 audience a day. No, he has really worked hard.
Yeah.
Of course, he has given all the advice, but physically, manually, the hard work that he has, provided for the Tibetan cause is something we all should learn and emulate. Yes.
Most definitely. And what an interesting insight. I think maybe we almost forget that, of course, he's the highest spiritual leader in Tibetan Buddhism, but he is a person, a real human at the end of the day, and has those emotions too. And I think he's shown us the path physically, verbally, everything. So we must follow his leadership and continue on the movement. And I was also kind of, whilst on the topic of leadership, there has been this rise in the Gen Z movement. We saw the effects of the swift and decisive action in Nepal, and also the response from the youth in the West a few years ago to Greta Thunberg and her school strikes for climate. In our own communities, there are many strong youth leaders, but there is often a disconnect between generations. How can we bridge this rift and ensure we have united voices in the movement, and that the motivated youth feel empowered and supported, but that they also recognize the important roles that the generations before them have played?
I always say, in the Tibetan community, there are noises. It's like, in your life, whether you look at your life, glass half empty or half full. Similarly, if you look into our in our community, and if you look at all the noises, or if you look at the movement, I always say, we must always, in life also, you must have attitude of glass half full. Similarly, you must cancel all the noises in the community. You should put Tibet front and center, Tibetans in Tibet front and center, and His Holiness Dalai Lama's hard work and contribution front and center, and then keep marching forward. Otherwise, if you keep getting distracted by noises in the community, one way or the other, it's just a distraction, and then you lose resources, you lose focus, you lose time. For example, I'm not trying to show up, but my schedule, all of September, October, November, my schedule is packed till January. Now I'm feeling February, March as well. Only time back home is when my daughter is during our holidays from
Yes.
college. Um,
That's important family time as well.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's very important.
Mm.
Um, but then, my point is you must cancel all the noises, and then just keep moving forward.
Mm.
I have met, Gen Z, our, younger generation. They say, our community says this, someone says this. That. I said, that's secondary, that's so secondary. What China is trying to do is make Tibet disappear from the map of the world, which they have succeeded. Now they are trying to make the word Tibet disappear, right? And even Nepal, as you mentioned. If you read any Nepali magazine, newspaper, or media, they don't say Tibet, they just say Xizang,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah.
And we know the case in France,
Mm.
and increasingly so in rest of the world. We might not feel it. We are in England, we are in Europe.
Mm.
Still, Tibet is there. The rest of the world use Xizang in place of Tibet. So our identity, our country, is disappearing right in front of our eyes. So we have no time for noises.
Yes.
Just contribute what you can.
Mm.
Keep moving forward.
Mm.
Yes, it's very important, that we should acknowledge the contributions of the elders. But then we must be creative, innovative, dynamic in, leading the movement forward. For example, Lakar, right? Right here in this auditorium,
Yes.
you have Lakar dance, So LSC students have brought the, place, rented, rent free, right?
Exactly, rent
Yeah.
free, which is a
So
big
now,
positive.
Tibetans in
Yeah.
UK can come and dance every Wednesday.
Yes.
Look at the Lakar movement. I attribute that mainly to younger generation. Um, Gen Z included, but there were elders too. But now participation is mainly by Gen Z or the younger generation. This is an organic grassroots movement. No one from CTA, no Tibetan leader came and said, let's do this. But organically happened inside Tibet, in India, around the world. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
What it
Definitely.
shows is that you could
Mm.
have a global movement asserting your identity while enjoying our culture and custom and dress,
Most definitely.
It's so beautiful,
Yeah.
right? And who did it? The younger generation.
Mhm.
Similarly, I mean, no one thought about it. No one actually thought it was even possible. I used to participate in Hakar wearing traditional dress, or chuba or wonju every Wednesday. That's all was my imagination.
Mm.
Now it's so beautiful.
Yes.
So I think I'm sure there are a lot of similar movements the younger generation can come up with, and it will be supported by everybody. So there is no sectarian issue, there is no regional issue. Everybody comes out and dance on the floor of Lakar.
Most definitely. And I think it's also a symbol. I mean, my only case study I know, most closely is the London Hakka Gorsha, but it's a symbol of the generations coming together, because the main participants are younger generations, but we need the older generations who know all the dances, the traditional ones. And also we bring in some more of the new modern songs. Every week there's new Lakar songs, you can't keep up. But it's that combination of everyone coming together, and then it makes for a beautiful Lakar Gorsha.
When I was Sejong, right?
Yeah.
So first few years, I used to tour all the Tibetan communities. First few years, a few aunties and uncle or two will perform because we went to Tibetan refugee schools and we knew a few steps. And then after a few years, I could see the uncle and aunties bringing the children, performing, right? So there was a progress. Um, and then uh, usually, I have to encourage parents. Parents is so important, take your kids to Sunday school and let them, learn Tibetan language, dance and culture and all that. Now, since Hakar started, right, now it's the children dragging their parents to Sunday school and say, you better take me on time. I have to learn, I have to perform. So look at this, the change, reverse of role, right? And it's so beautiful, it's so nice. So that clearly shows that, that's what I always say, look at glass half full.
Mm.
There's so many good things happening in our community, in our movement,
Yes.
and then don't get distracted by all the negativity.
Definitely. And also during your busy schedule in the UK, I'm sure that you will be meeting some prominent members of the UK government or potentially meeting. What do you hope to achieve from these discussions? And also, I guess more directly, what decisive actions can the UK government take to support Tibet currently?
Now, the decisive is a tricky word, Um, but what I always say, I'm old-fashioned, and I've been thinking about it, for some time since I left my office. From the very beginning, I said in 2021, I said we should be worried about and we should be focused on the international platforms. I said that in 2020. With His Holiness, traveling less and less, international focus will decrease, and it has. We must accept the fact. I was in Czech Republic recently, Prague. Before we used to have, I don't know, 58 or 68 members of parliament as Tibet support group. When I went, 17 senators and 3 deputy chairmen of the Senate, and then you used to come and have host reception and like that. Now I was told there are barely 10 or 15 member of parliament. When CTA leaders come, 2, 3, 4 parliamentarians come. Um, and then I've heard in Delhi and other places that I go to. So it's always a challenge. Then I thought now the best way to do this is go back to late 80s and early 90s. I'm old fashioned, grassroots.
Yeah.
Just go to every venue, every college there is. So sometimes there are only 5 people or 50 people or 500 people, it doesn't matter. You have to keep going and keep building.
The relations,
So
yeah.
Tibetan movement was one of the most popular, if not number 1 or 2 in 1990s because we dominated the grassroots. And now we have given the space to others. Now Taiwan is number 1 issue, and Uyghurs number 2, and then Hong Kong,
Yeah.
and then Tibet. But I have many friends among all these groups. I go to Taiwan, I have good friends. We work together, we work in coordination, and I speak. Nowadays I speak for them. They also speak for Tibet. We should work in coordination, coalition. Having said that, we have lost the grassroots space, and that's why we have lost from the discussion.
Yeah.
So that's why, yes, I will be meeting some parliamentarians on Monday. In fact, I have so few friends in the government. Because of sensitivity, I might not meet them this time. There's certain issues. But then, yes, going to the grassroots is most important. Yeah.
And I think also mentioning the allyship between the different movements, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Uyghur, it's very important. And right now in the UK, we have a very serious issue, which is the Chinese mega embassy. And that really is
Yeah.
a point of people really allying, uniting, and coming together. And the Chinese government has made several attempts to expand the current embassy to a mega embassy. This plan has been blocked and deterred by the Tower Hamlets Council, whose remit the building falls in. However, the Chinese Communist Party have appealed this and gone directly to the UK government now. And the decision was set to be made in, I believe, around the 21st of November, but it keeps changing. And then the recent Chinese espionage case has again changed it. But why would this mega embassy be a huge threat to not just Tibetans and peoples affected by the CCP, but also to the UK itself?
Yeah, Chinese government has established about 50 some police stations. Can you imagine? There are police right here in London monitoring, following, um, threatening uh, Tibetans and Chinese, anyone who have dissenting voices. Right here, in London. And I was in Paris recently. the Harvard Club of Paris hosted the event, and the president of Harvard Club said a dozen venues denied or withdrew uh, from hosting the event. Can you imagine? A
Mm.
dozen. And then normally, when Harvard Club wants to host an event, every corporate venues,
Mm.
they would like to give the platform, because you get Harvard alumnus, they're very influential people.
Yes.
You get potential customers or investors,
Mm.
right? A dozen, in her own words, it's public. um, um, that's how you know mm, shrewd and intrusive Chinese Communist Party is. So there is self-imposed censorship,
Mm.
but direct calls from embassy. And then finally, my event took place because they got an auditorium in a Christian college, and everybody RSVP, but the venue, address of the venue was shared just 24 hours before the event. In Paris, we are talking about. Um, and then that shows the tentacles of Communist Party is everywhere.
Mm.
So when you're talking about embassy here, um, because they're competing with America, they're saying whatever America has, we must have. American embassy of is that size. We are equal to America, and we need similar size and similar facilities, right? But how they will use it, if they're using for transnational repression, going after people, then I think the sovereignty and security, national security of UK is also in question. So that way, everybody should be alert and aware, and what you are bargaining or what you are getting into.
Yes, definitely. Um, so also today, Chinese officials emphasize His Holiness the Dalai Lama's reincarnation process, despite the state's atheist stance and its destruction of monasteries and historical manuscripts. You have been on an international tour giving talks on the reincarnation issue. What, in your view, gives the CCP the confidence and authority to make such claims about a religious tradition they fundamentally reject?
Not confidence. Is there arrogance? Um, Part their vanity, part their bullying tactic. Um, I was asked by journalists in India. They said, "Well, the Chinese government say is based on certain authority and history," and I said they always invent history and invent authority. For example, I said when the Chinese government claimed that Arunachal Pradesh is South Tibet based on history and they have authorities. Similarly with Ladakh, they were like, no, that's not true. Exactly, they invent history and authority all the time. Chinese government has zero credibility in the selection or finding of the Dalai Lama, because fundamentally it's His Holiness Dalai Lama's personal choice. You know, it's his conscience we are talking about. Where to be born, when to be born, it's his personal choice. No one can interfere, no one should interfere. Not his friends, not his family, not Tibetan government, not Indian government, not American government or UK government. That's why, including Chinese government. This is a private, personal, spiritual decision of His Holiness the Dalai, right? Because for 14 years, his followers from inside Tibet, all of Himalayan belt, from Mongolia, Russia, all over the world appealed and prayed to him. All the disciples saying, "We like you so much, we love you so much, we want you to come back." And as a teacher, he has blessed us, right? He's saying, "Okay, if you love me this much, then I will come back again." This is a very personal, spiritual connection between followers and the teacher. The Chinese just don't get that, you know. They're interested in the office of the Dalai Lama. They want to control the office. But reincarnation means the person, you know. Our reverence and our love is to the person of the Dalai Lama. He has his office, Ganden Porang. Ganden Porang is secondary, you know. But Chinese government, they want to control the office so they can influence Himalayan region and Tibet and Inner Mongolia and Russia and all that. So they don't care, you know. In fact, they say religion is poison, and they have vilified and criticized His Holiness throughout his life. They have called all kinds of names about him, yet they're saying we want to find his reincarnation. It's none of their business, and His Holiness has made it very clear in the book Voice for the Voiceless that he will be born outside of China in a free world.
Mm.
And he has made his choice very clear. So the reincarnation of Dalai Lama will never be born in China.
Mm.
That I think we all should know. So our argument should be very simple. It's his personal choice, and he has spoken. That's final. The Gandhian Pwarang Trust will coordinate,
Mm.
and then it should be mainly led by monks. No lay person should play a role in the finding of the Lama, and that won't look good.
Mm.
And then I think His Holiness is clearly indicating he will leave instructions and also authorize a person or few people, many monks, um, to lead this selection and finding of his reincarnation. So that I think we have to make it very clear.
Mm. Most definitely. To the international, governments and bodies, we need, I think, a clear statement that aligns with this view that the Chinese government cannot have any interference. And it
Yes.
doesn't align. And it's not even just the reincarnation of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. The Chinese government are trying to control the entire Tulku system of
Yeah.
Tibetan Buddhism. Firstly, there's two questions. If you could please explain the position of Tulku and that system, and then also give your opinion on what individual Tulkus can do to counter CCP propaganda, and what governments of independent countries like Mongolia, India, and Bhutan, and Western countries who follow Tibetan Buddhism traditions, what can they do to protect this very integral practice?
Now, in 2020, Tibetan Policy and Support Act was passed in the U.S.
Yes.
by both the House and the Senate and signed by President of America. It's a
Mm.
law. And the main chapter is about the reincarnation of Dalai Lama. And the US government has made it very clear. No one should interfere. It is for Dalai Lama and his followers to decide and find the reincarnation. And especially Chinese government cannot interfere. Any official who does will be sanctioned and penalized. So that's the strongest statement we have.
Yes.
And I hope the UK and other governments, and including India, will follow that, right? Now, yes, Tulku system, I don't want to take much of time, but it's unique to Tibetan Buddhism on the one hand, but followed also in all the Mahayana tradition of Bhutan, Nepal, whole of Himalayan belt, and in Mongolia, and also in Russian republics, and of course inside Tibet as well. Now, Tulku system has been transmigrated or also adopted in the Western world. We have few Westerners who are Tulkus, and in Asian also, in Southeast Asia and East Asian also. So it has become a bit of international, but it just means that, it's a law of karma. We believe that consciousness, once someone dies, um, it migrates, but among the Tulkus, they can reborn. Their consciousness can transfer rather rapidly and can reborn very quickly to serve humanity. Essentially, that's what it is, right? So we have hundreds of them, but few very high and special ones, and His Holiness is the most prominent one. And all of them have responsibilities, right? So uh, they have come back to further the vision and the wisdom of dharma, spirituality, and spread happiness, joy, and bring peace in the world. So that's their main responsibilities. Now, on reincarnation, I hope all the reincarnated lamas and all the lamas will have absolute loyalty and adhere to what His Holiness Dalai Lama has said regarding his reincarnation, that he will not be born inside China.
Mm.
He'll be born outside. And he will leave clear directives, and he will authorize a monk or two to find his reincarnation. Then all of them will unanimously agree and support the vision and the direction of His Holiness Dalai Lama. That's our paramount concern, and that's our main focus.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today. And just before we finish, the voting registration is currently open for the next Sikyong election and election of parliament members. Why is it important for us Tibetans to be active in our democratic process?
Very important. Now, I have an academic hat also.
Mm.
Now I've written my draft of a book is done. It's on democracy in exile, because I wrote my doctorate dissertation on comparative government exile, studying all other different kinds of government exile.
Mm.
And then case study was Tibetan government exile. And then now in the last 4 years, I've been reading that and rewriting that. Now, the book is coming out. My argument that I make is that there are around 35 million political refugees. 35 million.
Mm.
5 or 6 millions of Venezuelans, and Iran and Cambodian and Belarusian. It's just, of course, Uyghurs, Hong Kong, all that. And some of them are my friends. And I always advise them to establish government in exile.
Mm.
Among these 50, some say even 60 exile communities, our government exile is the best, most efficient, functioning government.
Mm.
We all should take pride in that. No one has. You might read about Iranian issues, Belarusians, and these are all very high-profile issues in the international, international community, in the platforms. But when I talk, because I know many of them, I just met with more than a dozen Iranian leaders in Prague, and I was supposed to spend 45 minutes, and then I will end up spending hour and 55 minutes.
Oh.
Because they really want to learn, and I've been giving advice to them, right? Venezuelans too, Cambodians, of course, Uyghurs and Hong Kongers as well. Now, wide range of communities are interested. And then number one issue that I really boast and say is that in the last 20 years, there is decline of democracy around the world. Less and less countries, I mean, there are more non-democratic countries in the world than democratic countries. Voter registration is decreasing. Voter participation is decreasing. Tibetan community is the only one where voter registration is increasing. Voter participation is increasing, So that shows that we are small, but our democracy is very vibrant and dynamic. And that Green Book is something no exile community has. And they all want to emulate that. They all want to implement that. It's not that easy, and we have that. And then I always say, normally politicians pay you to vote. We citizens have to pay to get to vote. It's very unique, no? It's something you should be very proud of. Green Book is something you should be very, very proud of. Your voter participation is a badge of honor. No exile community has. And also, even among the democratic countries around the world, no one, participates in election like us. So it's utmost important that Tibetans should cancel all the noises, and as I said, look at glass half full. Tibetan government exile is the best, most effective functioning government exile compared to anyone. Something His Holiness envisioned this, we embrace it, and we have made something, I don't want to say magical, but something we should be really, really proud of. And, participating in the process of election, democracy is very, very important. So all must go vote, irrespective of who the candidates are. Some you like, some you won't like. But your participation will make our democracy stronger. Make our democracy, it is already the best model, the best there is for the whole world to see. Isn't that beautiful?
Yes.
And we have achieved a lot. So always remember, glass half full. Be
Thank you.
positive, be energetic, dynamic, commit yourself to the cause. Tibet is number one, right? Tibetan people in Tibet is number two, and His Holiness Dalai Lama is the crown of Tibetan people, our symbol. Just like we say, when we say Kunjo Sum, we always say that. And that should be our number 1, 2, and 3. And then keep moving forward and dominate the grassroots.
Yeah.
Okay. And you are an activist, which is very good. And we should do the old fashioned way. That's the only way.
It's the best way.
Good
Thank
luck.
you so much. Thank you
Yes.
so much, Lobsang.
Thank you.
Thank you.